Hi, my name is Yenia Delgado, and I will be presenting my evidence tool, Rescuing Our Tangible Heritage, El Tajín, Veracruz. First of all, some historical background about El Tajín. It is located in Veracruz, Tamaulipas, and is formed by 168 buildings, the principal one being Pirámide de los Nichos. The archaeological zone is formed by 168 architectural structures of temples, altars, walking courts, palaces, and houses. And some important buildings in the place are la Plaza del Arroyo, Tajín Chico, la Gran Greca, and el Complejo de las Columnas. And what is it? Is the ancestral crypt of the Totonacos influenced by the Teotihuacan and Toltec periods. The site was reconstructed in the 13th century, and its stone, alleys, niches, and more make this zone a unique urban space in the world. Regarding the importance of El Tajín, all of this cultural richness is what gave El Tajín the official naming of Cultural Heritage by UNESCO in 1992. It's an important merit in cultural terms to own this title, and it's an honor to receive this title, and this tangible heritage should be known for owning this distinctive. Nowadays, it's undergoing transformations that have pushed it into turning into a manageable resource with a new process of touristification. So it's important to rescue this archaeological zone to improve tourist activity in the country. Now, let's move on to the dissemination proposal. The proposal consists of undergoing through the process of touristification in El Tajín, which means that the actual meanings of cultural heritage are decoded and are turned into something attractive to the tourist market. Now let's go through the phases of this proposal. The phase 1 is the show. So what I want to do is to make a night performance, which would be a representation on a show, including the historical recreations inside the archaeological zone using the original scenarios, which means the actual temple of the El Tajín. So basically, the show would show many of the most representative Mexican traditions that were done in El Tajín, especially those that are recognized by the UNESCO as cultural heritage, filling the audience with pride and cultural richness, but in a marketed and touristificated way. Now, where and what? It would be in one of their ball courts, because they have 17 inside of the archaeological zone, so I'm thinking using the biggest court, showing a representation of their traditions, which would be La Danza de los Búhos and their famous Juego de Pelota, also their rituals and their sacrifices, and mostly the Voladores de Papantla tradition. So what I want to do is festivalization and Disneyization. So what is it? The shows would be inspired in the Xcaret and Disney shows, while being careful in keeping their cultural and respecting their traditions. So Xcaret and Disney have shows where they have many actors on scene, and they show something that's tradition, that's cultural, but they put it in a more visual way that attracts all of the tourists. Now let's move on to phase 2, which is duration, times, and location. So duration, we would be starting with a small show with 50 actors instead of 300 like they use in Xcaret or Disney. And we will be investing on lights, actors, costumes, but for now we'll be doing something simple, maybe an hour-long show. Times. So the show could be at the very end of the day, because the site is open from Monday to Sunday from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. So I'm thinking if it's gonna be an hour long, the show could start at 4 p.m. and end up at 5 p.m. To close the site and still have time to perform. And it could be 3 times a week from 4 to 5, especially on weekdays, and have more shows on high seasons and less shows on low seasons. For example, high seasons could be during the equinox or festivities like Cumbre Tajín, and they could perform every single day during those high times. And well, the location, it would be definitely inside of the site, and I'll propose to do it on the biggest ball game court to make it more realistic. And finally, let's move on to phase 3, which is marketing. So in order to make this proposal known to the public, it definitely needs to be promoted. So the best way to do it is through social media. The platforms that are more big right now are Instagram and Facebook, so they could use those. But also we could get some support from the government. So the local government could promote it through radio and commercials. And also I was thinking of creating a website where they can actually book tickets online through that website, and because nowadays everything is done online too, so to make it more practical and easier for the audience, also make them make a site where they can actually check availabilities and schedule their show to see if it fits in their itinerary. Now, justification. Why is this an important proposal that has to do with culture, identity, and heritage? So, regarding culture, it's important because it enhances the culture in a vibrant way through a cultural way of representing the cultural identity of El Tajín. So, it's based on culture. It has to do everything about culture. Now, about identity, by visually representing the culture on a show, the public would feel connected with their roots and their identity, make them feel like proud Mexicans. So, identity would be basically by connecting them with their roots through visual representation. And finally, heritage. So, this show would transmit the story of the place, the traditions, the identity, and the heritage and the culture, but in an attractive and visual way. And this has to do with heritage because it would be a way to preserve tangible heritage.
¿Y cree que un espectáculo como eso promovería el turismo en el lugar?
Sí, claro, sería una atracción más. Bueno, siempre y cuando cuidando la zona de las pirámides para no maltratarlas, porque entre más gente vaya pues van a destruir, pero yo creo que si se hace en un lugar bien estratégico y donde se cuide toda la zona de pirámides, sí sería un atractivo más turístico.
And that was the interview where he talked about how he thinks it's a great proposal and how he thinks it will not affect their culture but instead enhance it. So I'm gonna give credits about the interview. The interview was done with Saul Delgado and credits about the authors of the information that I used to be able to create this proposal. They are E. Lani, D. Garcia, F. Zúñiga, S. Lapidus, M. Chaparro, C. Peredo, and L. Prats. And that's it. Thank you for listening to my proposal.